So you think you know Disney, do you? These classic characters have worked their way into our hearts and minds, but did you know that some of your all-time favorite characters were this close to being completely different? Hop on board as we ride this magic carpet through some of the most surprising changes, including some of your Disney favorites, like Toy Story, Frozen, and Aladdin. Like it or not, 2013's Frozen ended up being one of Disney Animation's biggest hits. So originally, one of Frozen's main characters had a much different trajectory. That character was none other than Elsa, everyone's favorite Arendelle princess with the power to control and create ice and snow, and who has a natural knack for creating impressive architecture. Believe it or not, making Elsa the villain would have been more in line with Frozen's source material. The film is based off of Hans Christian Andersen's story, The Snow Queen. Andersen's tale was much darker, hence Disney's decision to deviate from it. Frozen screenwriter Jennifer Lee mentioned that in earlier drafts, Elsa and Anna were not related. Elsa was also painted as more of a straightforward antagonist. When they decided to go the girl power route, they ended up with a version of the story released in theaters. Maybe you think this was a bad decision, but you know what? We're going to have to suggest that you don't say it. Let it go. Cruella de Vil is best known as the conniving and wicked elderly woman who wants nothing more than to turn adorable puppies into fur coats. Boy, she really is a cruel devil, isn't she? Here's something you might not have known about her. Although she's a cranky, evil old lady in the final film, Cruella de Vil was originally supposed to be much younger. She was going to be a gorgeous designer and a wealthy heiress, utterly devoted to the art of fashion. When animator Mark Davis joined the production, he made the crucial decision to age her up, transforming her into the Cruella de Vil we all know and love to hate.
Yes, I know.
What kind of world would we live in if Cruella de Vil had remained young and beautiful? Alas, we will never know. Aladdin. If only we'd look closer, would we see a poor boy? No siree. Aladdin is the 31st animated feature produced by Disney, and to this day, it remains one of the most beloved, and for good reason. It features gorgeous animation and a glorious soundtrack. Can we even say a whole new world without you exploding into a bombastic rendition of the rest of the song? In fact, we're willing to bet whoever's watching this just burst into a rousing song and dance number right this second. Aside from these amazing features, Aladdin also features Robin Williams' iconic take on the Genie. What's not to love? In fact, Aladdin's story is so good, it was almost enough to save Guy Ritchie's live-action remake from being a waste of time and money. Keyword, almost. The film's original story, however, was completely different. It was more faithful to the source material, but the studio was not a fan.
Excuse me?
In fact, after a story reel was delivered to studio chief Jeffrey Katzenberg, he noted that it didn't engage and demanded a major rewrite. One of the biggest changes was the title character himself. Originally, Aladdin was supposed to be younger, much younger. The character went through a number of iterations, but remained strictly in his teens. That is, until the creative team decided to go the direction of a romance with Princess Jasmine. From that point on, Aladdin was designed to be more of a Maverick from Top Gun than a Marty McFly. Boy, this is heavy.
Hang on to your turban, kid. We're gonna make you a star.
Beauty and the Beast was released in 1991 and was quickly dubbed one of the greatest animated features of all time. The film is a stunning piece of work, and we don't mean that in a sarcastic, hey, you're a real piece of work kind of way. We legitimately mean it's an impressive work of art. After the success of 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt Disney was firmly set on adapting other well-known fairy tales. The studio attempted to get Beauty and the Beast off the ground a couple of times in the 30s and 50s, but with little success. It wasn't until the late 80s that the project really started to get going. One of the biggest changes from the earlier stages of production was the character of the Beast. While he is still an imposing figure in the final version of the film, originally, he was supposed to be much scarier. The human elements were toned down in favor of making him look like, well, more of a beast. Obviously, this was changed to give us the more empathetic version that we're all familiar with.
He's really not so bad once you get to know him.
And while we're on the topic of Beauty and the Beast, there's something else that we should address, and that would be Gaston. It makes sense. The beast would have been tamed down to become more human. The real monster of the story isn't the beast at all, but the deplorable Gaston. Gaston is the perfect representation of Beauty and the Beast's moral center. That outer beauty isn't always reflective of a person's inner beauty. But when the production first kicked off, Gaston wasn't a hulking mask with a muscular form that would make even Arnold Schwarzenegger jealous. He was just a skinny dude that looked as if a soft breeze could send him flailing. The original look was a bit more upper class and pretentious, but the filmmakers made the wise decision to make him physically perfect to emphasize the character's contrast with the Beast, ensuring that Beauty and the Beast's message is as clear as possible.
All right! Yo, yo, woo, woo, woo.
But now let's bring it back to Aladdin for a little bit. We've already talked about the hero of the tale, so let's look at the villain. Specifically, the villain's not so trusty sidekick, Iago. In this particular case, it wasn't so much the look of Iago that changed, but the character's entire attitude. Jafar was a character inspired by the 1940 film The Thief of Baghdad, which served as inspiration for many of Aladdin's plot points and characters. They even modeled the look of Jafar after the actor Conrad Veidt, who played a similar character in that film. He's assisted by his parrot Iago, who is played by the incomparable Gilbert Gottfried. Anyone that's familiar with the character knows that Gottfried has a very specific, unique sound to his voice.
A problem with your daughter?
When you go for a voice as unique as Gottfried's, you'd think that that was the plan all along, and it turns out it wasn't. Originally, the plan was for Iago to have a British accent. While this does seem like a fitting option, we can't imagine the squawking parrot with any other voice but Gottfried's.
Oh dear.
And you know what? Since we're already on this Aladdin streak, we're just gonna keep this party going. Let's focus on everyone's favorite wish-granting, Robin Williams-sounding entity, the Genie. The Genie was originally supposed to be green, but this was switched to blue for the final version. We're not sure what Jafar is supposed to be looking at in his belly. Is that Jasmine and Aladdin? Did the Genie eat them or something, or is his stomach supposed to offer insights into the future? We're so confused. The other big change, of course, was the overall look of the Genie himself. Obviously, once Robin Williams got involved, the creative team spared no expense to redesign the Genie to look more like the famous comedian, and the Flying Genie shed a few pounds in the process as well.
Hello? Check. That better? Great. Everybody hear me?
Who doesn't love Woody? The Toy Story franchise's lovable cowboy is one of the most charming and beloved characters in Disney's entire repertoire. I mean, they even got Tom Hanks to voice the guy, for crying out loud. How could you not love him? Apparently, not liking Woody was the creative team's original intention. As originally conceived, Woody was going to be something of a bad guy. In fact, Mr. Hanks himself reportedly commented numerous times during the recording sessions that Woody was quote-unquote a jerk. The original artwork for Woody makes these intentions clear. The pull-string toy was originally a marionette puppet, just as creepy as the one seen in Toy Story 4. The dead-eyed expression, the wide-faced and apathetic stare, this is the face of something you find at the end of a dark hallway waiting to chase you down.
Wait, what? Yeah, that's not right.
This is something that would team up with the Chucky doll and haunt your dreams for all eternity. This is something Annabelle would probably want to date. You get the point.
Getting kind of tense, aren't you?
Of course, during Pixar's infamous Black Friday on November 19th, 1993, an early version of the film was screened for studio execs. The reaction was so negative that production was shut down until the writers came up with a better script. It's a rare example of studio heads actually making the right creative decision. Thankfully, it all paid off and we got both the Woody and Buzz Lightyears we've come to adore. Still, it's interesting to consider what might have been.
What are you, insane? We're wasting time.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a seminal effort in the history of feature animation, in case you weren't already aware. Snow White is known for her general innocence and purity. I mean, the character's name is Snow White, so that isn't much of a stretch. But here's something that might throw you for a loop. Apparently, the original version of Snow White was supposed to have a way more risque feel and look. Remember Betty Boop? That was the look Disney was going for. That's right, people. Snow White was supposed to be a flapper girl. Look at that. She's even showing off her ankles in this photo. For shame, Miss White. For shame. It was probably best not to go the whole Betty Boop route as well, considering she was only 14 years old in the movie. True story. And finally, we have Ursula, the evil but oh so fabulous octopus from The Little Mermaid. Wait, is Ursula an octopus? Or is she a squid? I mean, she only has 6 tentacles, which technically make her a squid, but do her normal arms count? Because if they do, that would give her 8 limbs, and then make her an octopus. Quick, comment below with your answer. Stat. Like many a Disney villain, Ursula has scarred so many kids for life with her wicked ways, and who, pray tell, ended up being the inspiration for the final version of this horrific, voice-stealing villain? Turns out it was none other than Baltimore drag queen Divine. But before Disney got to the character's final look, they went through a number of iterations to determine what would work best. Originally, they considered making Ursula a scorpion or even a manta ray, but ultimately, Ursula's iconic look has Divine to thank, as it gave the Little Mermaid villain a very distinctive vibe that continues to terrorize children all the livelong day. That's all, folks! Oh, sorry, that's a Warner Bros. Reference. Is that sacrilegious? Anyway, what did y'all think of these big changes? Which ones surprised you the most? Are there any others you think that we should have included? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel.